Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Monday, June 3rd, 2019. I'm Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. You'll notice here that the market sold off the entire month of May, dropping from the very first trading day of the month all the way down half the month, pulled back and fell short of the 2900s and sold off yet again, closing near the lows of the month. And anytime you have a close that's very near the low and it's very stretched away from the previous high there, there's a tendency to see a pretty decent snapback early in the month, back toward the pivot range, perhaps back to the monthly pivot point. One thing you'll notice is the pivot range for the month of June is rather wide after an aggressive move down that we've seen, and that can usually lead to range bound activity. So while we could bounce, perhaps we could find a range and settle into it. Overall, this market has sold off away from the upper end of the larger range that we've been following since last year. An expanding range where we took out the high and dropped. Another chance here where we took out the high and dropped. Is this going to lead to more overall weakness back toward this 2550 zone, or are we going to come out and even take out these lows? This is a very, very real possibility. It could certainly continue its way downward after rejecting the high, just similar to like we did last fall. Again, that doesn't mean we drop straight away. It could mean that we come back and build a bit before we do that, kind of like we did last year here. But overall, this market has fallen away from these highs, has dropped back below 2900, and that could lead to more selling pressure ahead. Again, early this month though, what we're looking for is perhaps a bounce back up into the pivot range. So watch prices below the previous month's low and close. If we start to reject those prices and push back above it, there could be some sort of relief rally back toward the mean, but then that could provide an opportunity for bears to defend off 2800 and drop this thing back down. So we'll continue to watch to see how price develops and responds to these areas here. If there's a rejection of these levels here, we can bounce. If there's any failure to get back above, say, 2760 here, then we may just continue pushing lower without the bounce. So the key levels to watch are going to be the previous month's close here. If we can get back above that zone, perhaps there's a relief rally early in the month that could then be followed by selling pressure. Very similar price action in the NQ as well. You can see very significant selling pressure from the high of the month all the way back down, closing at the lows of the month. You can see the close right near the lows. Anytime you have that close of a close relationship to the low after a major sell-off, there's a tendency again to see some sort of snapback toward the pivot range. So again, watch prices here off the 7130s. If price can get back above that zone, perhaps there's a bounce back towards 7400. And even if that were to be the case, again, bears could come back in and defend given the lower value relationship over the last month to month here. So again, selling pressure could be ahead for this one in the longer or medium term, but in the near term, perhaps a bounce over the next week. So we'll see how this continues to develop. If you take a look at crude oil, again, another one that has seen significant selling pressure here recently, but is now getting a bounce. You'll notice here we had this as a very narrow range that suggested we could get expansion, major expansion. We saw the same thing over here, another major expansive move. Those were two big time moves. And then here, on a failure to get back above that 59.65, price broke through the midpoint of the rejection tail and had another major move down. What we're seeing right at the moment is a rejection of the previous month's low and close. This is kind of what I'm talking about here with the ES and the NQ. If you can see a rejection of these prices, there could be an aggressive near-term bounce back toward the mean or back toward the pivot range, and that's exactly what could happen here. This is a pretty aggressive reaction already, and that suggests that any pullback into, say, 53.25 to 53.40 could still provide an opportunity to buy this thing in the days to come for a continuation back toward 56.83, maybe even as high as 50.58. So again, lower value relationship here. We could see a nice little relief rally followed by what could be another round of weakness. Overall, the 55 level was a significant LVN and continues to be, and breaking down below it was significant. And if price can get back above 55s, that could again lead to a bounce back as high as 58 before we start seeing some selling pressure. So right now it's looking pretty strong, an aggressive unidirectional trending day so far. Buy the dips until proven otherwise, and any pullback into the previous month's low and close, even over the next day or two, could still be a buying opportunity in the near term. Lastly, looking at gold futures, you'll see gold has been rallying here recently. We mentioned that this thing was really tightly coiled. We mentioned 1270 had become a great support level, and we were starting to see higher lows, failed new lows. In addition to that, outside day up and a major breakout. I mentioned 1305 was going to be the point where this thing could see a rally, and we're now seeing significant strength above that area. Overall, we're looking for this thing to push back toward recent highs. We are retesting 1324 or approaching it from below. This is the FOMC key level from March of 2018, and again, that's been an area here where we've seen some action here lately. So a failure to get above that point could perhaps bring this thing back down, but for right now, the fact that we've broken back above 1305 suggests that any pullback could even be a buying opportunity for a continuation toward 1350 and retesting that recent high. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out heading into the new month of trading. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.